Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today I have my October wrap up. October was a good reading month. I read 8 books, so that's pretty good considering October was a pretty busy month for us. So I'm pretty happy, and I read some really good books. There was really only 2 that got like a 3 or 3.5 stars for me, but everything else was 4 and 5. So I started out this month with a really short one. I read it in one sitting. It went really quickly. This is Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, and this was a 3-star. It was fine, and I really kind of only gave it 3 because it is a classic and it's so well loved. But I don't know. I guess I didn't get the hype, and it was fine, like I said. But I was expecting it to be super creepy and haunting and all that, but it really just kind of wasn't. It was mostly about the main character, Ichabod. Yeah, and less about the Headless Horseman. And that's kind of what I was really hoping it was going to be. But yeah, so I've read it. I can say I've read it, but it was only 3 stars, a very generous 3 stars. And then I read a book that I actually did a separate review on. It was a book that was sent to me from the publisher for review, and that is called 7 Days of Us. And this is written by Francine Horneck. And this one I really enjoyed. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and this is a contemporary book, and it is set in England, and it follows a family over a Christmas holiday, and the family is in a very different situation because they are all being quarantined because their oldest daughter was doing some medical work in Liberia, and that is an area that had been really infected with a specific type of flu virus that was very dangerous. So because she was working there, she came home for the holidays, and they all had to be quarantined together so that they weren't a risk to public. And they ended up just being, trapped indoors for almost 2 weeks. And things happen and lots of secrets come out, and it's a really good family drama. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was lovely, and I gave it 4 stars. If you want to see more of my thoughts on that book, I will leave the review down below. And the next one that I read is Best Friends Forever, and this is by Jennifer Weiner. And this was part of my Last Call series that I did on Jennifer as an author, so I will leave that video down below as well. I've already posted it. And this one I enjoyed. I gave it a 3.5 stars. This follows 2 women who grew up as best friends, and then as they kind of got older, they drifted apart, and then a pretty tragic event happens that ends up bringing them back together, and they kind of reevaluate their friendship. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And, again, 3.5 stars only because I enjoyed the story while I was reading it, but a year from now, it's not going to be something that sticks with me. So that's why I gave it a 3.5 instead of a 4. And then I did a buddy read with Anna, and she and I decided to read The Child Thief by Bram. Now, this is a very dark take on Peter Pan. It is a Peter Pan retelling. It is so dark. Like, I can't even express that enough. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, go into it cautiously. There is a lot of violence in here. A lot of violence. There is also some sexual abuse in here. There is just a lot of fighting and, talks of drug use and all that. So not for the children. This is not Disney's Peter Pan. But it was very creative. I thought it was wonderful. It follows Peter, who is Peter Pan, basically. And he does live in a version of Neverland, but it's not really Neverland. It's not a happy place. It's kind of crumbling at the seams. There's lots of fighting going on between all of the different creatures. And there's different territories, and everyone's claiming this land. And there's a lot of wars going on because of that. Peter goes into our world, and he finds children to take back, just like he would with the Lost Boys. And it's kind of the same thing. It's kids that are kind of, don't really have anywhere else to go. They're in really bad situations, and he feels like he's saving them from that to take them here to be his soldiers, to fight for his land here. And it's really good, you guys. It's very creative. Like I said, there's a lot of language in here though, so this is definitely 100% adult. Even teenagers, I would be a little bit wary. They need to be older teens, I think, just because of some of the language that's in here and some of, a lot of the violence and all that. I really loved it. I thought it was extremely creative and definitely a different take on it that I would never have thought of. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Anna and I both really enjoyed it, and we both gave it 4 stars. There's also some really beautiful artwork in here, and this is done by the author. So he's not only a writer, but he is an artist as well. So he picked a lot of, he did all of the drawings in here, and they are just absolutely stunning. There is one 2-page drawing in here that I want to show you. Just let me find it. This one right here. Isn't that beautiful? It is just the artwork. It's beautiful. Okay, so this next one I have a separate video on because I vlogged my experience reading it, and that is it, by Stephen King. This is the book that you guys picked for me to read in the month of October for my first kind of getting back into Stephen King. This is the second book by him I've read now, and I cannot wait to read more. And I absolutely loved this book. It is so big, but the audiobook really helped me through this. I went back and forth between the physical and the audio, and I loved it. I loved every single page in this book, and it definitely was one of the most intimidating books on my TBR, and I have read it now. I can't say enough about it because it is so unique, and this was written in the 80s too, so I can't believe it took me this long to read it, but I adored it. I thought it was genius. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was thought-provoking. It was heartbreaking. It was brutal, and then you got a little bit of happy in there too, and I loved every single second of this book. I really, really did. If you haven't read this and you want to, and you're into audiobooks, I would highly recommend the audiobook because Steven Weber reads it and he is fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. It's so good. It's a whole different experience with the audiobook. It really is. And I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. Okay, the last 3 books that I read this month are actually all for my birthday reading project. If you have not seen what my birthday reading project is all about, I will leave my first video down below. But I have started this project where I asked my subscribers to recommend books to me. And so I kept a running list of that. I had a certain number that I was going to hit. And once that list was full, I was going to start working on them. So I did start this month. I have read 3 of the books on that list. The first one is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This was my personal pick for this month, and I absolutely loved this book. This was recommended to me by On the Fritz. So thank you. And I had this on my shelf already, so I knew I wanted to read it. Halloween was the perfect time to read this because it literally takes place in a graveyard. This is a little bit more of a middle grade, I would say like upper middle grade, high young adult type of book. And it follows a young boy whose family is brutally murdered right in the beginning of the book, and he ends up getting away. He runs to a graveyard, and there he encounters some of the ghosts that live there, and they end up taking him in and raising him as a young boy, even though they are ghosts. All the while, the person who murdered his family is still looking for him. And this book was so creative, and I went into this not knowing anything about it. I had no clue at all what it was about. I just knew it was Neil Gaiman, and I wanted to read it, and a lot of people said it was good. And I really, really enjoyed this one. This one I also did listen to on audiobook, and Neil Gaiman reads it, and I highly recommend any of his books that he reads because his voice is perfection. It's so great. And for an author to read their own work, I think is definitely recommended if they do it well, and he did it so well. I really, really enjoyed it. And I ended up giving this book 5 stars, so strong start. And the next one that I read was How Lucky You Are by Kristen Cusick-Lewis, and this was recommended to me by Sandy B. And this one is an adult contemporary. This follows a woman named Waverly, and she is in a long-term committed relationship. She had quit her full-time job as a teacher, and she wanted to open up her own bakery. And when the book starts out, she already has that bakery, so you kind of get a little bit of that backstory, which is pretty cool. And she is struggling a little bit to make ends meet with her bakery. And then because she and her boyfriend are not married, you know, they don't have the kind of combination of money type thing for a safety net for her. So she's really reliant on herself for money. But her bakery is kind of struggling a little bit to make ends meet. She also has two best friends, and one of them is in an abusive relationship. The other one is married to a very prominent politician who is running for an office, and there is just drama all over the place. And I really enjoyed this book. I got sucked in and I didn't want to put it down. I flew through it pretty quickly. I really enjoyed all the drama in it. If I'm going to read an adult contemporary, this is the kind that I would want to read because it's drama, but it's also realistic drama. And it's just, you know, people down on their luck more than anything, and just, you know, bad things happening to them. And that happens, you know, that can happen all around you, especially, you know, in a certain time span. So to me, it was very realistic. I have read some adult contemporaries that I'm just like, okay, that would never happen. Or, you know, that's not very realistic. Or, you know, this person reacting this way is not okay. But this one, I could easily see it happening to anybody. And I really, really enjoyed it. The writing was great. It had me laugh out loud quite a few times. And the friendship that these three women had together was really fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And this one I gave 5 stars as well. I have a feeling as time goes on, I would probably rate it a little bit lower. But when I finished it, I was left just beaming. I loved it so much. So it's 5 stars for me. And the last one that I read is The Painter's Daughter by Julie Klassen. This one was recommended to me by Monica Cortero. I hope I said that right. I loved this book, you guys. Oh, it was so fantastic. This book is a Christian fiction, so it does have an emphasis on God. That's not the entire book, but it's definitely there. And I absolutely just adored it. I really did. This book is set in the 1800s, so it is definitely like that time period, kind of Downton Abbey-ish time where, you know, everything was very proper, and, you know, you're getting these love scenes where all they do is kiss, but it's like the best thing in the entire world. And, you know, the husband is looking at his wife and catches a glimpse of her ankle, and it's like thrilling for him. Like, you know, this is the kind of time period that we're in. So it's just funny to read something like that and then think about what there is today where, you know, you can see anything and everything anytime you want to. But I love that. And this story was really, really compelling. I'm telling you, there is some scandalous stuff happening in the 1800s. Who knew? And I loved the characters. They were incredibly complex. So the painter's daughter is a woman named Sophie, and she literally is a painter's daughter. Her father is a painter. She in turn is a painter as well. She kind of does it more as a hobby versus a career, but she ends up meeting a man who comes to work with her father, who is also an artist, and they form a relationship, and they are sexually intimate before they are married, which is, you know, big no-no back then. But it happens, and he ends up leaving to go to Italy. He's a very free spirit. He doesn't want to be tied down to anybody or anything. He wants to be able to just go wherever he wants to, anytime he wants to. And that's what he does. He kind of leaves her high and dry without, you know, really saying goodbye to her. So she's devastated. She's also pregnant. And so, yeah, really devastated. This man's brother comes to find him because he knows how his brother is. He's kind of all over the place. So he kind of comes to check up on him and see if he can bring him home, and ends up meeting Sophie. And he gives her a very hard to resist proposition to help her in her situation. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to ruin it for everybody. But it is so good. And seriously, scandal after scandal after scandal. I was just like, what is going on? 1800s people. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the experience of reading it. I was never bored, and I just loved the themes going throughout it. It was fantastic, and I gave this one 5 stars too. So 3 books on my birthday reading list project done. 3 5-star books. I'm loving this project. All right, guys, that is it for me. That was my October wrap up. Let me know down below if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought. Let me know what your favorite book for October was. And did you have any books that you were disappointed in that you read as well? I will talk to you guys again soon. I will be back tomorrow with my November TBR. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye.